is less of a dream and more of a nightmare. Pun isn't even remotely happy. She will kill him, unaware that she will soon contract cancer. The saddest anime of all time. First of all, you got clickbaited. This isn't about an anime at all, but about a manga. See, this little bird here is called Pun Pun. Pun Pun Punyama, actually. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I've found a main character almost as relatable as Denji. Now, warning, this video will contain some mature themes, topic matters, and dialogue. However, I will try to minimize the spoilers, but that doesn't mean there won't be any. First, Pun Pun's grade school days. When the series starts, Pun Pun is still at the grade school age, maybe 6 or so. He lives with his mother and father in a humble home, but things aren't too crazy yet. Pun Pun even has a couple friends, so he's not like, say, Naruto at that age. In fact, on top of these friends, he even has a lady in his life named Aiko. Now obviously, things don't start in any type of romantic way, but after some time around each other, they start to develop certain feelings about one another. This is the first major relationship in Pun Pun's life, because as you will soon notice, he's a very quiet and reserved boy. Back to Pun Pun's home life, we can see that his parents argue quite frequently. Because he's so young at the time, he often just ignores it, assuming that it's a normal part of life. He goes off into his room and says a prayer, and introduces our next majorly important character, who I call the Face. Pun Pun's prayer states that this is God, but there are multiple figures throughout Oyasumi Pun Pun who you could assume are gods. So I don't really know. Soon after his prayer, he decides he wants to become an astronaut, so Aiko will like him. The next day, Pun Pun's mom is mysteriously hurt when a burglar breaks in. But no one buys this bullshit story. It was obvious that Mr. Punyama had injured his wife. When he goes to school 2 days later, he feels some tension because a lot of people know that it was Pun Pun's dad. But the day is still far from bad, because after a long talk, Pun Pun confesses to Aiko, and she kisses him. Now, I'm going to leave out the rest of his grade school days because frankly, you should just read that part yourself. But the last thing I want to bring up, now this I want you to see. Aiko promises to run with Pun Pun to Kagoshima, and if he breaks that promise or lies, she will kill him. Next is Pun Pun's teenage years. Our boy is now in middle school, and he and his mom must change their names to Onodera, which is his uncle's last name, Uncle Yuichi, the one that taught him the prayer. His uncle, Yuichi Onodera, now lives with the former Punyamas in place of his father, who is no longer at the home, for obvious reasons. But the big plot development is that Aiko now has a boyfriend, which, like it would any other boy his age, is seriously painful to Pun Pun. During this time, his relationship with his mother is very strained as well. This is probably due to how quiet Pun Pun is, and in that way, he's pretty similar to his uncle. But as far as Pun Pun's mom goes, I would like to shift the focus to her for a second. Miss Onodera is a great example of how alcoholism and domestic abuse can affect the person. For over a year, she supported her drunken, abusive husband financially, and that's partially what molds her into the craziness that she eventually becomes later on. This is the first very serious topic I'm going to touch on in this video, but if you know anyone who may be in an abusive relationship, or even if you are yourself, please take the proper action. These types of relationships always affect more than just the two partners. In some cases, like Pun Pun's, it might affect your offspring. Or your negative attitude might affect your coworkers or friends or even pets. Regardless, you should never feel alone in this situation and always try to get help. That is where Pun Pun's mom fails, and as a result, she spirals out of control. Anyways, back to the main plot. Pun Pun talks with Yaguchi, which is Aiko's boyfriend, and Pun Pun's god tells him to hate Yaguchi and even suggests a way on how to kill him. But Pun Pun finds himself liking Yaguchi. The problem is, they both love Aiko. So who will win? They decide whoever does better in badminton will get Aiko's heart. But on the day of the tournament, Yaguchi gets very injured. He breaks down in tears and announces Pun Pun's win, but Pun Pun isn't even remotely happy to hear this. Moments later, he meets with Aiko. She asks Pun Pun once more if they can run to Kagoshima, but he tells her the truth. She should go see her boyfriend and comfort him right now, not fantasize about running away with Pun Pun. She leaves, and Pun Pun lays down in the snow and cries. For the rest of his teenage years, he will never see Aiko again. Soon after this, Uncle Yuichi has an affair on his fiancée Midori, and then he leaves town. Midori cries hard for a long time, and Pun Pun is the one to comfort her. That's when Midori gets the idea to hurt Yuichi back, so she too commits adultery. But with Pun Pun. Now, warning for this next part, it mentions sexual misconduct and with a minor. So, yeah, that's not something you're comfortable with. Click off and probably don't read Pun Pun. Anyways, she reaches for his boxers, which is quickly met with Pun Pun jumping backward, but Midori again grabs hold of Pun Pun, sprawls him out over the table, and takes advantage of him. He cries the entire time. I'm actually on the verge of tears typing this myself. Pun Pun is sexually assaulted by Midori, who he was only trying to comfort. He goes home in silence, thinking to himself that he should just die. But he decides against it and masturbates in the dark. That's the only way he knows how to cope with the stress. This leads to our second serious topic, rape. Midori was an older, trusted adult in Pun Pun's life, but she took advantage of him. He might not show it immediately, but this moment will greatly and negatively impact him for the rest of his life. And as far as Pun Pun's mom goes, well, she's currently at a love hotel with a younger man, unaware that she will soon contract cancer. I won't reveal what her fate is. And lastly, Pun Pun's adult life and his saddest and darkest period. He moves out of the house after high school, but he never does end up in a college. He just lives off an allowance, miserable. He has a few girlfriends, but almost nothing major happens, aside from one lady named Sachi Nanjo. She actually met Pun Pun when they were both teens, but they've just now reconnected as adults. And they get in a relationship. After a couple arguments, it's revealed that Sachi is actually pregnant with her ex-husband's baby. During their separation, however, Pun Pun reunites with Aiko, who is much different now. Pun Pun leaves home with Aiko, and the two go on a trip to Kagoshima, just like they had always dreamed of. The trip, however, is less of a dream and more of a nightmare. I won't go much farther into this, in fear that I might spoil something majorly, but I do want to bring up a third serious topic, and the reason why I think this is the saddest manga of all time, or at least one of the saddest of all time. This topic is suicidal/homicidal tendencies. For the majority of the 11th and 12th volumes, Pun Pun slowly loses hope and any will to live that he once had. He becomes suicidal, and worse, Aiko suffers from poor mental health during this time as well. As a result, the only person who could possibly support him is just as fucked up as he is, meaning he has no outlet. His life spirals, and there are multiple times where he tries to kill himself. If you ever feel this way, like you should hurt yourself or somebody else, there are people you can and should speak with. Because take it from someone who has tried before, suicide is never the answer. Unfortunately, many people every year feel that they have no other choice. Many people in this manga felt that they had no other choice. But you do. You always do. I promise. And with that, I end my overview of the Pun Pun plot. If you like this video, consider reading Pun Pun. And if you've already read Pun Pun, I suggest you check out another of Asano's mangas, Umibe no Onako. That being said, have a nice day. Tinkle hoy.